The markets are closed, but the business stories are just heating up. Hello, I'm Mai Rodriguez. Catch up with us on Business Brief. Asian stocks trade mixed as markets weigh the Federal Reserve's monetary policy path following last week's rate cut, while President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown on worker visas keeps sentiment cautious. Japan's Nikkei, South Korea's Kospi, and Australia's ASX trade higher, while the rest of the region moves lower. In currency markets, the US dollar strengthens against the Japanese yen, but weakens against the Hong Kong dollar, the South Korean won, and the Thai baht. It remains flat against the Singapore dollar, while the Australian dollar is also flat against the greenback. In commodities, gold moves higher while oil prices show mixed trends. In cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin falls more than 2% and Ethereum drops over 7%. Malacanang says President Marcos is willing to submit himself to an investigation. This is in connection to reports he received millions of pesos in campaign contributions from public works contractors. But Palace Press Officer Claire Castro says they will leave it to the Commission on Elections to investigate the matter. A report by the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism said Marcos and his then running mate, Vice President Sara Duterte, got tens of millions of pesos in campaign funds from contractors. This despite a provision in the Omnibus Election Code that bans candidates from accepting contributions from entities that do business with the government. Thousands took to the streets Sunday to voice their anger against corruption, but various groups also converged at the Bantayog ng mga bayani to mark the more than 5 decades since the declaration of martial law. Lyja Bonzo has that story.
On the commemoration of the 53rd anniversary of the proclamation of martial law yesterday, various groups held a candlelighting ceremony at the Bantayog ng mga bayani as a symbolic act to show that the fire to resist and to fight for our freedom should keep burning. Amid the pervasive corruption issues in the country, according to feminist and martial law survivor Ana Maria de Menzo, the Philippines does not fully reclaim its sovereignty.
Hindi lang tayo tunay na malaya kung hindi abusado pa ang ating mga kababayan, mga karapatan natin, kalayaan natin, ipaglaban natin. Mga kagalagahan ng kasaysayan, huwag natin kalilimutan. Yan ang ating, we use our past to learn and to wage our path towards the future.
As spearheaded by Bantayog ng mga bayani and Buhay ang People Power Campaign Network, around 150 people joined the commemoration, coming from different groups, student organizations, and including some martial law survivors. During the repressive regime of former President Ferdinand Marcos Sr., thousands of human rights violations and billions of ill-gotten wealth had been recorded.
Ginugunita dito ang mga bayani, survivors at mga martyrs ng isang madugong rehimen sa ating kasaysayan, kung saan nagkaroon ng 10 bilyong dolyar na pandarambong at 11,103 verified victims of human rights violations, 70,000 reported human rights violations.
Chua calls on Filipinos to keep on telling their stories. Meanwhile, the Memorial Center also announced the launching of Buhay na Bantayog project on November 30 of this year. With support from the Quezon City Local Government Unit, they have been working to rehabilitate their facilities with the goal of regularly opening its grounds to the public.
Kung mapapansin niyo po, ito pong Inang Bayan at kasama na ang kanyang parke ay magbubukas para maging isang daytime park kung saan sa pang-araw-araw ay maaari ng bisitahin ang Inang Bayan kasama ang plaza nito. At gayon din po ang paglalakad patungo sa ating Wall of Remembrance.
It has been 53 years, but the people's calls remain the same. The Filipinos shall never forget, and they shall never let martial law happen again. Lyja Bonzo, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Quick response teams are helping residents cross the Bagunot Bridge in Cagayan Province. Non-stop rains brought by Super Typhoon Nando flooded the bridge. Local disaster officials say more than 2,000 families in 112 barangays are now staying in evacuation centers. Rice crops were also damaged due to strong winds in Lalo municipality. The northern portion of the province is under signal number 4, while the central portion is under signal number 3. That's according to Weather Bureau Pag-asa. Still up north, Baguio City Mayor Benjamin Magalong inspects Kennon Road to assess its condition and ensure public safety as Nando batters the region. The mayor, as special investigator of the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, went to the stretch along Camp 6. He checked on the stability of the slope protection measures installed in the area. Meanwhile, the Public Information Office of Tuba in Benguet posted online this video of the famous Bridal Veil Falls along Kennon Road. The popular route to Baguio has been temporarily closed due to fallen power lines and trees. The government's investigation into alleged flood control anomalies shows early signs of market reaction. Manny Ocampo, President and COO of Investment and Capital Corporation of the Philippines, tells BNC's Business 360 that he has seen some positive notes in the markets as things develop.
I think these actions are positive to my mind. They set about at least the efforts of the government to try to restore confidence in the government. And, the sooner they're able to do that, and people, investors seeing that the government is serious with this work, then we move back to, we're really back to business as far as I'm concerned. We've seen some positive notes from the market over the last week or so with the, with how things are developing, that there seems to be hope that, government will really take this seriously. They're putting in the right people. I think the appointment of Secretary Dizon to the DPWH, along with folks that complement this, complement his activities there at DPWH is definitely a step in the right direction. The formation of the independent committee, we still have to see what the committee will come out with. Is it only fact-finding, or are they going to start pointing fingers at particular groups? No? And then that passes on to the judiciary. Will we take these people to task?
A Filipino-American state assembly member was arrested in New York City. Stephen Raga was nabbed by Homeland Security police when they attempted to visit immigrants at a detention facility. The details from our U.S. correspondent, Don Tagala.
With liberation, down, down. With deportation.
On Thursday, elected officials visited the 26th Federal Plaza detention facility in New York City to evaluate whether ICE was complying with recent court order for the agency to provide detained immigrants with food, toiletry, and bedding, as well as access to legal representation.
This is government property. We are government officials, sir.
We've tried to make an appointment. We've sought the opportunity to get an appointment to visit. Members of Congress have sought to exercise their right under the United States Constitution to see what's going on behind those doors.
But instead of providing access to detained immigrants, DHS agents arrested more than a dozen New York City and state officials, including Comptroller Brad Lander and Filipino-American State Assembly member Stephen Raga, who staged a protest in the facility's hallway after they were denied entry.
This act of civil disobedience is needed in certain times of our country's history and other countries' history, and I think this called for it. So luckily, I wasn't there held overnight. I came back home later that night.
Raga says the fight for immigrant rights in New York detention facilities is just beginning.
We have to fight for New Yorkers, for our neighbors, sooner than later. We can call upon a special session in Albany so we can reconvene and discuss bills that we can prioritize and make into law. An example of that is New York for All. That bill on the state level would ensure that agencies and entities locally do not work with ICE and give that information, private information, to ICE.
Filipino-American leaders in New York City commend Raga for putting himself on the line to defend immigrant New Yorkers.
I was so proud of Stephen Raga, Assemblyman of New York, and the 10 other government officials to come together and investigate and find out how are the immigrants, those who has been detained by ICE, how are they being treated?
He represents a district that is very diverse. Maraming immigrant families na bahagi ng kanyang distrito. And yung kanyang willingness to undergo such an ordeal is a manifestation, I think, of his deep commitment to his electorate.
Raga says he was detained for a little more than 3 hours, while most undocumented immigrants, even those without criminal records, may be held for days or months in federal detention facilities. U.S. Immigration Attorney Michael Garfinkel has this advice for immigrants encountering ICE in public places.
The first thing you have to do is try to remain calm. And I know it's obviously a very stressful and aggravating situation, fearful situation, but just remain calm. You don't want to run away because that's going to be a sign of guilt, and it doesn't mean that they're going to not run after you.
Do not resist. Be as safe as possible in that process because they could always add additional charges. They could always take it a step further. And you'll want to keep yourself and your family as safe as possible.
Each of the elected officials were issued a misdemeanor Class C violation, which prohibits unreasonable obstruction of entrances, lobbies, corridors, elevators, or stairways. While the federal misdemeanor carries a maximum sentence of 30 days jail time, reports say these arrested officials are most likely just have to pay a fine instead. Don Tagala, Bilyonaryo News Channel, New York.
We're taking a short break. More stories are up next. You're watching Business Brief. You're back in Business Brief. First, it was KTM and Husqvarna, then Maxus. And now the Ayala Group and Volkswagen AG are going their separate ways, too. Our mobility correspondent G. Baroga takes us through the amicable split and where the Bilyonaryo family is headed next in the evolving local auto scene.
After 12 years of driving side by side, the Bilyonaryo Zobel de Ayala family is now pulling over and parking its role as the official distributor of Volkswagen vehicles in the Philippines. Yes, the Ayala Group and Volkswagen AG have decided to part ways, and it's all by mutual agreement. According to AC Mobility's strategy head Dana Uson, both sides see this moment as a natural turning point, especially with Ayala going full throttle on electric and sustainable mobility. It may be the end of the road, but the two major players in the auto world head in different directions respectfully, and with a lot of gratitude for the ride they have shared. The partnership kicked off in 2013, but by the end of September, the last Volkswagen showroom in Bonifacio Global City will be closing its doors. Still, for existing Volkswagen owners, after-sales services remain available at centers located in Alabang, Cebu City, and San Fernando, Pampanga. This isn't Ayala's first brand breakup. In 2024, they wrap up their partnership with KTM and Husqvarna motorcycles. And just this August, they also said goodbye to Maxus, a Chinese car maker with British roots. But don't count Ayala out of the auto race just yet. AC Mobility still runs several Honda and Isuzu dealerships across the country and remains the local distributor for Kia and BYD, two brands that align with Ayala's push for a greener electric-powered future. For BNC Mobility, G. Baroga.
FirstGen Corporation plans to spend around $20 billion over the next 5 years. The Lopez-led firm says the investment will expand its power portfolio to 13 gigawatts, both in the Philippines and abroad. FirstGen President and CEO Francis Puno says the company is counting on renewable energy initiatives to drive growth. Currently, FirstGen has a total generating capacity of 3,688 megawatts from geothermal, wind, hydropower, solar, and natural gas plants. FirstGen, a leading geothermal producer through its subsidiary Energy Development Corporation, hopes to begin drilling for its Amacan geothermal project in Mindanao next month. Security Bank Corporation will borrow billions through a fixed-rate peso bond offering. In its disclosure, the bank says the bonds will have a minimum issue size of 5 billion pesos with an option for oversubscription. The bonds will have a 5-year tenor and offer a fixed interest rate of 6% per annum. The public offer period runs from September 22 to October 17. Security Bank will list the bonds on the Philippine Dealing and Exchange Corporation on October 29 to provide secondary market liquidity for investors. South Korea's economy could fall into crisis that's worse than its 1997 meltdown if the government accepts U.S. trade demands without safeguards. That's according to South Korean President Lee Jae-myung. Seoul and Washington verbally agreed to a trade deal in July. This includes the lowering of President Trump's tariffs on South Korean goods in exchange for $350 billion worth of investments from Seoul, among other measures. They have yet to put the agreement to paper as negotiations continue. Lee is flying to New York on Monday to address the UN General Assembly. In Peru, hundreds of protesters clashed with police in the capital, Lima, on Sunday. The demonstrators tried to march toward government buildings. The protest, which was organized by a youth group, is opposing a controversial pension reform plan. It's also meant to express outrage against corruption in government and rising criminal incidents. At least 3 police officers were injured. Philippine shares and the first trading day of the week lower. The PSEI falls nearly 0.8% to 62.14, making it the second worst performer in Asia. Sectoral indices closed mixed, with mining and oil leading gains at nearly 2%, while financials dropped the most, over 2%. Advancers outnumber decliners 113 to 90, with value turnover reaching 5 billion pesos. The day's most active stocks are mixed. BDO Unibank falls the most at 4%, while Bloomberry Resorts rises nearly 7%. Meanwhile, the peso trades flat at 57.15 against the US dollar, unchanged from the previous close. That's a wrap for today's Business Brief. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Join us again tomorrow as we bring you the stories that help you plan your next big, bold moves in business. Only here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. I'll see you then.